To the public, he was a successful businessman, an active member of his community, and a man known for entertaining children as Pogo the Clown. Behind that carefully crafted image, however, was one of the most horrific serial murder cases in American history. This is the timeline of John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. In 1964, he married his first wife and moved to Waterloo, Iowa, where he managed several Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants owned by his father-in-law. On the surface, Gacy appeared to be building a successful life. But that image wouldn't last. On December 3, 1968, Gacy pleaded guilty to a charge of sodomy involving a teenage boy. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but served only about 18 months before being granted parole for good behavior. Less than a year after his release, another teenage boy accused Gacy of attempting to sexually assault him in Chicago. The charges were ultimately dropped after the victim failed to appear in court. About 11 months later, Gacy's murder spree began. Investigators believe Gacy's first known murder occurred in January 1972. His victim was 16-year-old Timothy McCoy. Gacy later claimed the killing was accidental, but instead of reporting what happened, he buried Timothy's body beneath the crawl space of his Chicago home. It would not be the last. In July of 1972, Gacy married his second wife. Over the next 6 years, he would murder at least 33 young men and boys. During this time, Gacy owned a construction business known as PDM Contractors. Many of his victims were employees, job applicants, or young men he met while offering work. He often gained their trust by offering jobs, alcohol, or drugs before convincing them to come back to his house. Once inside his home, Gacy used what became known as the handcuff trick. He would pretend he was demonstrating how police officers escaped from handcuffs. When the victim placed one cuff on their wrist, Gacy would quickly lock the other cuff onto them. Then he revealed the truth. He was the only one with the key. Many victims were sexually assaulted before being murdered. Most were killed by strangulation using a ligature. Of his 33 confirmed victims, 29 were buried beneath the crawl space of his home. The remaining victims were either buried elsewhere on his property or dumped into the Des Plaines River. The first time investigators seriously looked at Gacy was in July 1975 after John Butkovich disappeared. Witnesses reported seeing Butkovich arguing with Gacy over unpaid wages shortly before he vanished. Despite suspicions, investigators lacked enough evidence to charge him. Between 1976 and 1978, several missing persons investigations pointed back to Gacy. Again and again, detectives questioned him. Again and again, there simply wasn't enough evidence. That changed in December 1978. On December 11, 1978, 15-year-old Robert Peast disappeared on his mother's birthday. He told her he would be right back because he was meeting with a contractor about a possible job opportunity. He never returned. Investigators quickly learned that contractor was John Wayne Gacy. On December 13, 1978, detectives interviewed Gacy and obtained a search warrant for his home. Inside, investigators noticed a strong odor coming from the crawl space. They also discovered items linked to missing young men and a receipt connecting Gacy to Robert Peast. It still wasn't enough to arrest him. But investigators knew they were getting close. They began around-the-clock surveillance. On December 20, 1978, Gacy confessed to his attorney that he had murdered dozens of people. His attorney immediately contacted investigators. The following day, December 21, Gacy was arrested. A second search of his property uncovered the first human remains beneath his house. That discovery launched one of the largest forensic excavations in American history. Investigators ultimately recovered 29 bodies from the crawl space, additional remains elsewhere on the property, and 4 victims from the Des Plaines River. On December 22, 1978, Gacy gave a detailed confession to murdering 33 people. In April 1979, a grand jury indicted John Wayne Gacy on 33 counts of murder. At that time, it was the largest number of murder charges ever brought against a single defendant in United States history. Gacy's trial began in February 1980. His defense argued that he was legally insane. Prosecutors argued the exact opposite. They presented evidence showing Gacy carefully planned the murders, concealed the bodies, and repeatedly avoided detection. The trial lasted just over a month. On March 13, 1980, after only a few hours of deliberation, the jury found John Wayne Gacy guilty on all 33 counts of murder. He received 12 death sentences, with the remaining convictions resulting in life sentences because of Illinois sentencing laws in effect at the time. For more than a decade, John Wayne Gacy terrorized young men and boys while leaving families desperate for answers. Even after his conviction, the trauma continued for survivors and for the families who would never see their loved ones again. Gacy spent the next 14 years on death row. During that time, he exhausted every appeal. He gave numerous interviews, painted hundreds of works of art, and repeatedly attempted to deny responsibility or shift blame for his crimes. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. He was 52 years old. His reported final words were, "Kiss my ass." Many believed the case had finally come to an end. But investigators weren't finished. In 2011, the Cook County Sheriff's Office reopened the investigation using modern DNA technology in an effort to identify the remaining unidentified victims. Between 2011 and 2021, DNA testing successfully identified 3 additional victims. Even today, 5 victims remain unidentified, a reminder that decades later, some families are still waiting for answers. John Wayne Gacy wasn't simply one of America's most prolific serial killers. His case forever changed missing persons investigations, forensic excavation techniques, and the use of DNA in identifying victims. More importantly, it serves as a reminder that behind every victim's name is a family that deserves the truth, and a story that deserves to be remembered.